Hello, welcome to my tier list video. I decided I would like to share my opinions on these WoW specs, which is actually all of them. So let's get started. First, we have Affliction Warlock. So I personally am not a huge fan of it. I think it plays a lot like ranged Feral, which you'll find out later that I do kind of like Feral quite a bit, but I don't know, it just doesn't quite have the same like power to it that Feral does, but it's also not horrible, so I don't know, I think I put it C tier. I think it's pretty okay. I'm not going to complain if I have to play it. Next we have Arcane Mage. Now I know a lot of people really like playing Arcane Mage. I know it's really polarizing. Now for me personally, I'm not a huge Arcane guy. I think it doesn't play very fast, and running out of mana is just not really my type. I know it's like part of the whole spec and all, but it's just not that fun. So I'll put it C or D. I don't know, I might move it later, put it C. So this is gonna be our first D tier here. I hate Arms Warrior. I think it's Fury but worse. Like it's slow and hard, but I like overcaps on your resource, and then at the same time it's also trying to have you hit a proc, and it just doesn't work out. It's just bad, and I don't really get the appeal of it. I think it's just not good. Assassination. This one's definitely higher. I've played it a lot more recently, and I think it is either an A or B tier, kind of high B, low A. Put it in B for now. We'll see. I might move it later, but I think it's pretty fast. I don't find myself on energy very much, and when I do, I just press Thistle T, and I'm back in it. Especially AOE, you just press Fan of Knives, and then your Tempest Storm, whatever, and it's good. And it's a talent. What's it? Indiscriminate Carnage. That's what it's called. That is pretty fun to use. It's a massive burst with the Garrote and Rupture on 8 other enemies, I think. So that's definitely fun to use. Although it never performs very well. I haven't seen it in the top half in years, I'd say. Balance, also not a very good spec. It is fun pressing Convoke, but I'm just not a fan of how random it is. I don't know if they really use Convoke anymore. I tried it quite a bit back in Shadowlands, and I just couldn't do it. It sucked. It is kind of interesting with like the moon and the or is it lunar phase, but it just feels so wrong empowering lunar when you're on single target and vice versa. I don't know, it just feels clunky to me. Oh man. Moving on, we got Beast Mastery Hunter. Now this is the worst spec in the game, hands down. It is so mind-numbingly boring and uncreative and well, I should say uncreative, but it is so, it's just bad. Like, you have like, by the time you reach like level 20, you have all your abilities and your rotations basically maxed out. It's not good. If I am going to say something nice about it, I do like that your Frenzied Assault is up pretty often, but I don't know. Taming the pets is kind of fun too, but aside from that, it is just horrible, and the damage is also garbage right now. I think last time I checked, it was at the very bottom of Abyss Mythic. Moving on. Blood DK. Now, this is my favorite of the tank specs. I know it is self-sufficient in dungeons, so you really can just pull as much as you want. As long as you can handle it, which a lot of times you can't. Purgatory is also very nice to have. I think it's the best cheat death in the game because you get quite a bit of time to recover from it. And also, it's only like a 4 or 5 minute cooldown on it, so it's very fun to use. I think if you line up Empowered Rune Weapon and your Ghoul and Abomination Limb and a Trinket and like all the stuff at the same time, it feels insanely good to be in your cooldowns. It's just a wonder to behold. I think every player should feel that experience of full cooldowns Blood DK at some point. All right, Brewmaster Monk. I have mixed feelings on Brewmaster. I don't know where to put it. I don't like it that they don't have very much self-healing, but they have quite a bit. Touch of Death is definitely very fun to use. Same as Touch of Karma. I feel like it's the nature of the spec, really, but it's like kind of like a slow burn. It doesn't... I don't know. I'll say C tier. It's pretty okay, really. Being able to pull a bunch of stuff, and you hit them with the keg and they light them on fire. It's pretty fun. It's fun to watch. And Spinning Crane Kick with weaving and rushing Jade Lightning. I don't know. I kind of tucked it into a B tier. I think it's not the worst, but it just doesn't quite feel the same as Blood DK. It doesn't have the sustainability and like the power, really, even though it is performing better right now. Now, Demonology. Demonology is a personal favorite of mine. I think it does everything Beast Mastery Hunter fails at. You have all the pets, you have all the demons. Then right when you peak at like 30 imps and 4 dogs and whatnot's out, you rip out your Tyrant, and then they all stay out for an extra 20 seconds or so, and your Tyrant's doing a ton of damage. And if you have the Gul'dan's Ambition, you even get like a Pit Lord and stuff, and it's just really fun to do. Same as Implosion. I think it's a very cool ability, aside from the fact that the tracking is pretty bad, so you don't want to be using it if they're moving, but very few complaints about the class. It's probably my favorite range spec. I just think it plays very well. I haven't played it since the rework, I will say, but I definitely played it at the start of Dragonflight, and I mained it there for just a tiny bit in the start of 10.1, so good spec. I highly recommend. Destruction? Now I'm going to be honest, I haven't played very much Destruction, but I did do a bit of it like an expansion ago or so. It's not for me, really. I think it's pretty okay. Rain of Fire feels like Flame Strike. I mean, it kind of is. I don't know. It's just not as good as Demonology. You have your demon out, but it's not the Felguard. Now, I know it's not fair comparing it to the other specs. It should be on everything, which is why I put it in C tier. But it's just... I don't know, the Chaos Bolt is also very fun to look at, I will say. I don't have very much to say about it. It's a pretty okay spec. Devastation. Now, this is either top of B or low end of A. I don't really know. I will say, S tier is obviously this for the very best. A tier is for something I wouldn't mind like maining, and then waterfall it down from there all the way down to F is where I would never play it, even as like an alt. Devastation's gonna be an A for me. I had a ton of fun with it when it first released in Shadowlands during the pre-patch. It just felt so fun to play, partially because the stat scaling and whatnot, and I haven't played it much recently, but I would really like to get back into it, because I just remember having so much fun with you spray your breath and then your Eternity Surge and just spam the pyres, and then you watch the pyres spawn another pyre. I just feel like I was constantly just ripping out massive amounts of damage, and I don't know, just playing the Evoker is pretty fun too, because they're fast and they look pretty cool, and all that stuff. And of course, you got like your grip and stuff. It's a good spec. I like all 3 specs of the Evoker. Discipline Priest. It is probably it's higher than Brewmaster. It's actually, I think it's higher than Assassination, really. It's one of my favorite healing specs, if not my favorite. I think it does a pretty good job of, back when I played it at least, it wasn't too long ago, where you're trying to balance damage and healing. Your damage does the healing and all that stuff. It's just, every time I have played it, actually every time I look at it, it's just weak. It's not that good of a healer, so I don't know, but maybe if you can look past that, I think it's a very good spec. It's fun to play. That's really what it is. It's just for damagers who don't want the long queues and pugs or whatnot. Yeah, I don't know. I would recommend it. It's not quite an A. I think I probably wouldn't like maining it, but yeah, definitely a good pick for a healer. especially if you're a damage main like me. Elemental Shaman. Man. It's gonna be a D for me. I think it's, yeah, just right below balance seems right to me. It's not really, it just doesn't feel all there for me. Like the whole earthquake thing, it feels like it's trying to take a bit from old school Boomy with the, where you target your Starfall, or what's the other one? Yeah, fire or destruction. Just, I don't know. It kind of needs its own identity. Now, watching the chain lightning go flying out of your elemental is pretty cool and pretty fun, but it just, it's slow. I shouldn't say that. It's not very slow, but it's a caster. That's what it is for me. As you can see, I'm not a huge fan of the casters. I'm a bit more of a melee guy, but I don't know, I got a bit up here. It's just not really the greatest. I never really see it performing very high in meters either. Same goes for enhancement. I'm going to put it a bit higher though, because no, I'll put it bottom of C. It's pretty fun to play. It's really just ranged elemental. You share a lot of abilities with it. It's also like the fantasy of it too. It's just not that fun really. I know it has seen a lot of success, and you got Bloodlust and all that good party buffs and whatnot, but it's just not really the thing for me, really. Feral is going to be an A tier. Probably put it here. I started playing WoW when I was 4, so I have a ton of nostalgia for Feral. I mained it for like 9 years or so, all the way from Cataclysm to halfway through Shadowlands, so I've always really liked it, and I feel like my biggest complaint with it for the longest time is that on AoE, you would use Primal Wrath and you put your dot up, and then you just press it again just to refresh the dot, because that was the most damage you can do on AoE. But then recently they added in Tear Open Wounds with the talent trees, and it really fixed a lot of my complaints. Now it's still a terrible spec. It always does bad on damage meters and whatnot, but if you can get past that, it is very fun to play. And who doesn't like looking at like the sparkly cat or whatever? Very cool, very high, very fun. Highly recommend for pretty much anyone. I think it's a good starter spec too. I like how the bites work too, with waiting for 50 energy to use it. A lot of other finishers, actually I don't think any other finishers like that. Fighter Mage, same boat. Man, I'm coming across a lot of my A tiers early here, but I've tried to main it a lot. I just can't bring myself to do it, but it is one of my go-to alt specs. Probably here, actually. It is always good. It is always on the very top of the meters. I have never seen it towards the bottom. It is very fun to play. I like the idea of reacting to your crits instead of just like a set rotation. Like, it's different all the time. My biggest complaint about it though is that if you mess up your rotation, you are screwed for like the next minute or whatever, and you have to wait for your combustion to come up. And once again, I haven't really played it since the rework. I don't really know what the rework did, but the version of it I'm thinking of is it's pre-nerf, so it is definitely high up there for me. It was the Ignite build. I like Ignite more than Flame Strike 2. I will say that. So I don't know about it right now, but for the most part, it is definitely an A tier. Frost is interesting. I'm not really sure where to put it. I like it constantly changes its play tiles, so I can't really judge it very well on its current state, but by the way I remember it, I'm going to put it in pretty high C tier, I will say. I'll put it here at the top of C. I like the Frozen Orb, and I like the Hailstorm, whatever. What's it called? Now I feel dumb. I don't know. It's just the one where you put the reticle down, and there's just a bunch of sleet that comes down. It's fun to use, fun to play, fun to look at. Your Ice Barrier is pretty nice too, and your mobility as a mage with Bloodlust and Alter Time and Dragon's Breath, it's very nice to play. That goes for all mage specs. but yeah, it's just not quite what fire is, and I haven't. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played it very much just because I would rather play fire. But yeah, I think I played it a bit in BFA, and I think it's a pretty good spec. It's definitely got better specs in it, but it's also better than quite a few. Frost DK. I don't think it's D tier. I think I would put it probably here in C tier. Probably right in the middle. The only reason why it's that high is because you feel like the Lich King when you play it. You pop on Remorseless Winter, and you're just flinging around all your frost spells and your frost abilities, and you just can't help but feel like the man himself, right? He's something special. I do like how it's got the dots, and you're doing constant AoE damage. I'm a big fan of that, but it's really slow, and I'm also not a really huge fan of the Breast of Syndergosa, where you pop it and then you have to keep it up as much as possible. And then the alternative is Obliteration, which that just sucks. Don't even get me started on that. It is not fun to play. All right, get ready for a rant here. Fury Warrior. Fury Warrior, it is hands down, single-handedly, not even close, I'm tempted to put another tier here, S+ tier, to put Fury in it. It is that good of the top spec in the game. It is by far and away the best. To get started, I will show you some evidence here. Let me go to my profile. And let's just pick a random fight. Let's go Sarkareth. Let's go here and show you the casts. Look at this. I'm doing over twice the casts of second place in my rate team. And you see we have a very wide variety of specs here. And the item levels aren't too far off either. There's not like a gap. So when you play Fury, you're playing the game like twice as much as second places. And just to prove it, I'm going to pick a different fight that we did this night. So Echo Neltharion. Look at this. Same deal. It's pretty insane. Amalgamation Chamber. Yep, same deal. It is not even close. You're playing the game twice as much as anyone else's. The idea of Wind Fury, and then it's just Wind Fury every 4 abilities, and then it's your single target. It is very fun. It's really easy to be fluid. It's easy to switch between AoE and single target because you just, either press Whirlwind or you don't. I find your cooldowns is what it is for me. That's the big selling point. You have on certain bosses. Actually, let me check here. Let me check the uptime. I bet it is insanely high. Let's go to buffs of recklessness. 99.79% of the time, I had recklessness up. That is just insane. My major cooldown is up the entire fight. Like, you don't see any gaps here. It is up the entire fight. And that goes for pretty much every boss too. Which means you have double rage generation and 20% crit or whatever. So it's not like you don't even need a stat crit. So the rest of your stats can go into mastery, which is a flat damage increase while you're enraged. And my enrage uptime is, I can't check, but it is also 100. It is very, very good to play. Your stats feel really good. Your haste, I'm almost constantly at the haste cap. And having Ravager tied to recklessness is also very fun. And it gives you it's stacking strength up to 30% or something like that. The Thunderous Roar is also very fun in AoE. Like, on top of all that, you have an extra 100k DPS in burst with that ability. And it's also not capped too, because the rest of Fury's capped at I think Whirlwind is capped at 5 or 6, and then everything else is uncapped. So it is kind of her saving grace in large pulls there, but it is extremely fun to play. Seriously, who doesn't like the Viking Berserker kind of feel? Very, very fun. Cannot recommend more. It is great for new players. It is great for good players. It's by far and away the best class, best spec in the game. I cannot express enough how good it is. Alright, now let's come back down to earth. Bear tank. I'll put a B tier. Actually, I like it a bit more than this. Everyone knows how overpowered it is right now. Everybody does. It is very good. I like it that you really just can't die. It feels a lot like Death Knight and cooldowns, but at all times, really. But what I don't like is just how simple the rotation is compared to the other tanks, especially Blood. There's like so much more that you have to keep track of, like your bone shields and your, bone shields and your death and decay uptime and your runes and your death strike and all your defensives. And Bear, you just kind of sit there and spam Iron Fur and Ravenous Frenzy, or what's that thing called? I don't know. It does the AoE Rage Spender. It's just not as good, but it is kind of fun to play as a Bear, I will say. Definitely not the worst tank, but definitely not the best. Havoc Demon Hunter. Havoc is going to be a solid B for me. I'm going to put it at the top of B. Everybody likes being fast. Everyone likes zooming around and looking like Illidan. I mean, seriously, who doesn't want to be like Illidan? Everyone wants to be like the Lich King. My character actually is a Garrosh knockoff, so there's that. Yeah, I don't know. I-Beam is extremely fun to use. And same as like the Hunt and Essence Break and all of that stuff. It's very fun to use. I will say I'm not a huge fan of specs that stack crit, which is funny because this stacks, but I'm more of a haste mastery kind of guy because I feel like those more impact the gameplay, and I think that's why I kind of dropped it down a bit because they're like crit verse last time I checked. But Metamorphosis too, that is also extremely fun. You just hop into a big demon form, you just start slapping stuff. Great spec. Alright. Sorry, I just had to take a drink there. Holy Priest. Probably the worst healing spec. Maybe not. I don't know. It's low. Put it in D. Its only redeeming quality is Guardian Angel, which means you died, and that's not good. You shouldn't be dying. Just not a huge holy guy. It's really just like vanilla ice cream. You get the heal button, you press the heal button. There's nothing special like you do here with Atonement or whatnot. You just kind of, I don't know. That's the best way I can describe it. It's just pretty bland. Holy Paladin, though. This is my favorite healing spec. I put it in A tier. It's extremely fun to generate your... It's a lot like Discipline, really. You generate your healing abilities by doing damage. Which, as you can tell, I'm a damage fanatic. I'm a fiend. So, when you tell me to do damage as a healer, I'm gonna say, sure. And do it anyways. So... I'm a huge fan of that. I'm also a fan that you don't really have to worry about mana. It's more of a cosmetic item, unless you're spamming Holy Shock, but, whatever. You'll have time to drink in between pulls. It's also extremely powerful, last time I checked, although I do believe it just got a nerf. But it's usually a pretty good healing spec, and it's definitely fun to play. Marksman Hunter. This one also sucks. I'm sorry, Hunters. I'm just not a Hunter guy. I don't like how long the cast times are with like aim shot. I am a fan of Ricochet with rapid fire, but I'm not a fan of how this button buffs this button, which buffs this other button. And then, I mean, I shouldn't say confusing. I'm not the marksman expert, but it just seems like it's trying to do a little bit too much at the same time, and it should just kind of pick an identity. I also don't like that you put your pet away. Like that's kind of the whole point of the hunter, is that you have your pets out. Then you just take the stupid talent that gives you damage increase without one, which also makes it extremely annoying to play with them, because then you tell them to get Bloodlust out and they don't do it because they're like, my damage. I mean, I don't blame them. I complain about missing damage too, but still. All right, Mistweaver Monk. I'm not a huge fan of this either. I'll put it at C tier. I like the ability to kind of turbo heal with channeling Soothing Mist, and then also using Renewal or whatever it's called at the same time. And then Life Cocoon too. That's also really fun to use. really, this is probably my least played spec in the game. I really don't have too many in-depth thoughts on it, but the reason why I haven't played it that much is because it's never really interested me. So C tier it is. Outlaw Rogue. I feel like all the rogue specs are pretty okay. I'm gonna put it right next to Assassination. Now, I'm gonna put it behind it, but in my head, these two are tied. I think they're pretty even. I like rolling the die and hitting that. It's the gambling class. It's a gambling spec. It's just a good version of enhancement, isn't it? Because enhancement's got all the Wind Fury procs, and that's pretty lame. Outlaw though is, I don't know how to describe it. It's pretty fun. I like using slice and dice, and then it's self-sustaining, and then you roll the bones, and you get the big hit, but sometimes you just get extremely disappointed with a low one. And I know there's a talents that help that out, but I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about it. It's pretty fun. I like pistol shotting, and I really like how Blade Flurry works. It feels a lot like Fury's Whirlwind. So actually, on that thought, I'm moving it up. I think it's better than Assassination, but pretty close. Oh, wait, hold on. This isn't right. We'll do this. There we go. Okay. Preservation Evoker. I dabbled in it a little bit at the start of Dragonflight. I think it's a pretty good healing spec. I really like how stasis works. And then again, you're playing Evoker, which you just have every utility on the planet aside from Bloodlust and Battle Riz. I'm really torn here. B or C, it's either up here. Yeah, I think yep, I think that's yep, that's where I'm putting it. That looks about right. Put that here. Okay. Yep. I'm satisfied with that. It's pretty fun with putting Echo out on everyone, especially what tier is it? The Razageth one. Your tier set lets you, your stupid orange ball gave everybody Echo, and then you can hit them with a massive Verta Embrace. It was pretty fun to play with. It did big healing, big numbers, big everything. I'm a fan of that. I don't know if you could tell. You saw my parses. I'm about those numbers. Prot Warrior. This is a real stinker. Warrior's definitely my favorite spec, but these two guys really kill it. Put it there. It's pretty fun. Not really. No, I don't. I take that back. It's not very fun. You spam Revenge. I am a fan that you do constant AoE, but that's how every tank works. I mean, you have to get aggro somehow. It's a slow burn. You get hit, and then you just start dying. You have no way to save yourself aside from Victory Rush or a pending victory, but you're not really killing anything because you're a tank doing like 10 damage. So, yeah, I don't know. Your healing sucks. You have Ignore Pain, which is also an even slower burn. It just feels horrible to be standing there for like a minute to 2 minutes waiting for your healer to run back, and you're just watching your health tick from 20 slowly down to 0. It's not good. Not at all good. Now this is a good shield tank. This one is top of B tier. Very top of B tier. Like that. Yep. That seems about right. It's always good. It has incredible healing, not only to itself, but to the rest of the party. It's not quite on the same level as Blood DK, but it's definitely up there. It's fun to use. You really it's kind of thoughtless though, really. You press the button that lights up, and that's about it. Not really much else to say about it. It's pretty funny. You just go in there, pull everything, play with your shield, and don't really know. That's kind of it. Restoration Shaman. This healing spec also kind of sucks. Sucks pretty bad. Put it here. It's pretty, once again, I'd say bland. Just splashing people with like water and then like oh, this water is like special water. Ugh. The fantasy sucks. It really does. It's kind of stealing Restoration's role there, but it even took its name. But it's pretty okay. I mean, it's got the healing rain circle, and and then the mana tide totem. I mean, I guess that's kind of cool, but just not a very big shaman guy, as you can tell. I do like Spirit Burst Totem or something like that. Is that what it's called? I don't know. You get it at a pretty low level, you just drop it, it does all the healing for you. Pretty major cooldown, and I think you get multiple charges of it too, so it's not really the worst. I might move it up a little bit here. I'll put it here. Yep. Okay. Restoration Druid. Better. This is one of the better healing specs for sure. I'm gonna tie it with Discipline here. I kind of play it about once an expansion. It does good healing, but you have to. It's not reactive. It's proactive. So you really have to make sure to get the hots on the players before it happens, which is also sometimes kind of hard to tell. Because they could just be standing in something, and it's just, oh, what are you gonna do about it when something like a holy paladin could have just thrown up a word of glory or whatever, and they would have been fine. But I mean, I guess you have like Swiftmen and stuff, but it's just not the same. You gotta really be on top of everything, and it's not the best for. It's really fun in raid, I will say. I think that's probably where it performs the best. It is fun to pop Tree of Life and all your cooldowns and Tranquility, and then you hit Flourish, and then everyone's just taking 200k HPS for however long that lasts. Definitely fun to play with. Recommended healer spec for me, at least. Ret Pally. Ret Pally, it is somehow more bland than Arms Warrior, but I do think it's slightly better. It's the default spec. You can't really go wrong with it, but it's in D tier because this stuff has got a bit of flavor to it. All this stuff up here. This is, you press the buttons until you get 3 holy power, and then you spend them. And then you press it until you get 3, and then you spend them. It's just kind of boring. It's repetitive. Not in like the way... It's not like the repetitive fun that Fury is. It's just repetitive, just for the sake of being repetitive. It's not even a word anymore. It's so repetitive. And Wings also kind of sucks to use. It doesn't have the massive cooldown reduction like some of these specs do. I think Wilfred makes a demonology like that too. And Kindling here. And whatever that talent does here. I forgot. Shadow Priest. Shadow... I feel pretty torn on Shadow. I mained it for a bit back in Legion. That was a ton of fun. I would have put it in S tier back in Legion. And I think it's kind of back to its former glory. Not quite A tier, but it would be probably here for me. I don't enjoy Holy that much. Yeah, that seems about right. Shadow... I really like Surrender to Madness. That was it for me. You press the button, you die in 20 seconds, but you do massive damage. I was a fan of when Void Form was like a keep-up game. It was a lot like Breath of Syndragosa, but fun. I don't really remember what the difference was, but I just remember I liked it way more. What else about it? The Psychic Link, I think they nerfed that recently. It's still pretty fun to use. You just dot up everything with Shadow Crash because that one talent, it's Misery or something. No, Misery puts the double dot on. Whatever. It's got Shadow or Death too. Executor. I'm a fan of Executes if you can't tell, with this and this and this and this. Actually, pretty much all these are Execute specs, but yeah, it's good. Moving on, Sub Rogue. Honestly, all 3 of the Rogue specs to me are solid B tiers. I'm not going to cry about playing them, but wouldn't want to play them for too long. Sub really lacks in the AoE department for fun for me. These 2 got a bit going, but this one's just kind of secret technique or whatever it's called. Or I forgot what it is, and black powder. Meh. It's whatever. I also find it pretty clunky having to manage 2 bars in the stealth form and the non-stealth form. It gets pretty annoying. It's hard to find a good hotkey for Shadow Dance. And Shadow Blades also kind of feels like a weird sidekick. I don't know. It just doesn't really fit. It's not the greatest spec, not the worst spec. It's not C, a little bit better. I think that fits it right there. These 3 specs. Now survival, it gets memed on too hard. It really does. Year of the Spear sadly doesn't happen too much, but when it does, it's usually a pretty good meta. I'm a big fan of the bombs. I'm also a pretty big fan of having that your pet kind of side by side with you. It succeeds. It's the happy medium between these 2 horrible specs. It's not quite A tier. It might be B. Put it right here next to the rogue specs. I think it's a good spot for it. This is getting knocked down. This is also getting knocked down. There we go. That seems about right. So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty good with the whole pheromone bombs and I forgot what the other names are for them. Shrapnel bomb and it doesn't matter. It's fun though. It's definitely fun to throw the bombs out and you have to like aim to spray in the right direction. So it's a bit of positioning, and I think it's Eagle aspect of the Eagle where you can become like a range player for a few seconds. It's definitely fun. I do recommend it. Definitely the best hunter spec. It doesn't deserve all the memeing. It's good. It's good. Unholy DK. Whew. I also don't really know how I feel about this. You can range anywhere from here to here for me, really. It depends on the meta. For now, I'm going to set it here. Yeah. These 2 are about equal in my eyes. It does a good job of being the big boom spec, you know. You need a big burst damage. You bring in the Unholy DK. You need someone to Power Infusion, Unholy DK. You need someone to Augmentation Evoke, Unholy DK, just because of how impactful Army of the Dead is. I'm also a fan of Outbreak and Epidemic. It just feels so good. You press Outbreak and you just watch it spread to all the enemies, and then you just start spamming your Epidemic and just massive numbers fly off the screen. It is slow though. That is my issue with it. It really doesn't play that fast, and I know there's certain talents and whatnot that give you more damage or not or more haste, but it's not to the level of this, and it's also this really, and it's also oh man, what was that one called? Implosive Potential. That was just something else back in Shadowlands. That was peak demonology. I reminisce a lot about it. I keep on getting sidetracked on these specs. I just stare into demonology's loving eyes here, and I can't resist. Vengeance Demon Hunter. Also high spec for me. Top of B, not quite A. Yeah, I think this seems about right. Very fun to play. Very, very big damage. It's very fast. I mean, it does a very good job of being the tank version of Havoc. You still have I-Beam with your assistant, Demon Hunter or whatever. Fell Domination, and your major cooldown feels pretty good to use. The only complaint I have about it is that it doesn't have too many damage amplifiers like Blood DK does, or Holy Paladin doesn't really have it, but they do have wings. But this is just like your Metamorphosis is like 15% melee damage or whatever. Nobody really cares, but Spirit Bomb is definitely great. And also just look at your character the next time you're in your Metamorphosis form. Like that's a powerhouse. It is very cool. Very good spec. All right. Windwalker Monk. Also, the butt end of many jokes about how a lot of specs suck. It's not this high. I'll put it here. Yeah, there. where to start. And I really like how the mastery works, where you can't press the same button the same time in the row. And I also like how you got to get creative with it sometimes. So you might run out of chi, or you might run out of energy, but you don't want to repeat a blackout kick again. So you might use expel harm to keep that damage increase up. Very fun to kind of mess around with, but Storm, Earth, and Fire is not a fun spell to use. It's good that Clarity, is that what it's called? It just like superpowers yourself. That it's good to see that that's actually the better talent right now. Pretty fun to use. I've leveled quite a few Windwalker, although I do have some complaints with Spinning Crane Kick and Rushing Jade Wind when you have to use those. I mean, I know Spinning Crane Kick is the main form of AoE. It's just weird because you have to awkwardly run around like Tiger Palm everyone before you use it. It's weird. It's clunky is what it is. And last but certainly not least is Augmentation Evoker. Definitely an A tier for me. I've really enjoyed mine. I'm going to put it here. Yep. Seems fitting. Extremely powerful. You're like the guy who shows up to the party and everybody celebrates because everybody loves you. You give everybody insane survivability. You give the tank 30% armor. If you give it to a Fury Warrior, it instantly gives them 3% extra damage because of a talent, which is just crazy. It's good to have that information out there. Yeah, I don't know. Evan Might's pretty fun to keep up. It's a completely new playstyle. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. You guys already know that probably, but it's definitely really fun to play. It's instant invites to any dungeon, any item level too. I'm getting antsy here. Let me bring up some more logs. Sandstorm. That's my character. You can see here. I ignored those. I didn't have a very good night. Let's go here. I want to say that the damage is like attached at the hip here. That's not a good one. I should have picked a lower parse. Let's do the 61 here. Your damage is attached to the other players in the dungeon. My item level is still pretty high there, but still, like you can see, I'm 13 below this guy and 11 below this guy. Actually, no, actually, that's a tank. Whatever. But you're really attached to with the other damagers. I keep picking bad examples. Let me try to find a better one. Thesaurus. Here we go. So my item level is very low compared to these guys, but my damage is high because these guys' damage was pretty okay, it looks like. So it's very fun to use, and it's a very good ult. I think it makes an insanely good character, the ult, because you can just grab one and you're just straight into it. You're just right into the pumping. Now, the only complaint I have about it is that the damage meters don't really show it, but I think Warcraft Logs is working on their own damage meter. That's going to be cool to see, but I'm getting sidetracked. Thank you for watching if you've made it this far. I've had a lot of fun talking about these tier lists. I know I stuttered a lot and whatnot, but it was definitely fun. Thank you for watching. Again, really means a lot to me if you've made it this far. Kind of doubt anyone really has, but we'll see. I don't know how long I've been recording for. It's been a while. 44 minutes. All right, well, I'll try to get this uploaded and see ya, I guess.